Hey there, and welcome to the daily podcast where wisdom smacks us with kisses or love taps. I'm MichelleSpiva, a wisdom strengthening coach, your host, and practical priestess of wisdom. Mwah. Join us daily to gain wisdom and mental strength as we tackle innovative thinking, address emotional and behavioral life traps, and yes, provide you with some practical how to's to wrap it all up. So settle in or crank up the speed 2x, whatever gets your mental processes firing as we dive in. Stay tuned. Yay! Hey, this is MichelleSpiva, your practical priestess of wisdom, with today's podcast of Wisdom Smack. Mwah. And I am just going to tell you, they tried to tell us, they tried to entertain us into it. And did we listen? Well, hopefully today we'll find out. Please join me as I go into talking about what is required in today's world to make not only sense of what's happening, but to how not to get left behind and how not to get destroyed in the process of moving into the new requirements of being a world citizen. I'm going to be talking about how the entertainment that we have enjoyed over the last 15 years has been preparing us for a time like this. I'm going to be talking about different things that have been around us, but now is the time for us to finally be able to see them, and so much more. So come on, join me on the flip as we get into talking about why we must have eyes wide open wisdom. I'll see you then. Hey there, and thank you so much for joining me today. Let's go on and get into it. Now, I'm going to go on and say this. There comes a time when you have to leave behind the elementary understanding of your world. And that means that you move from being accepting what is told to you and even shown to you, and move into what is revealed to you and experienced by you. And that's where we find ourselves today. And that's another reason why I am imploring you to understand the mandatory, necessary minimum of what is required to continue to survive and thrive in today's environment. So let's get into it. Why we must have eyes wide open wisdom. Okay. So going into this, I just want to, tell you not even a story. I just want to, tell you that you've been being groomed for this for a minute now. Oh, yes. And you've been being groomed to this through your enjoyment of entertainment, whether it be the big blockbusters, the Marvel comic blockbusters, or the big um, novel series that you find yourself enjoying. You've been grown for such a time as this. And that grooming has come by way of you starting to understand the need for you to be able to, on command, expand your consciousness. Now, when I say expanding your consciousness, that's a fancy way of saying to be able to expand your awareness, your ability to understand that there are more things afoot than a casual glance will give you, and that it has nothing to do with about conspiracies or conjecture, and it has everything to do with the fact that we are now moving into a frequency and a dimension, if you will, that requires this. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, take a look at some of the currencies around the world, or even your fiat currencies, the paper currencies, or even your, in some cases, your credit and debit cards. And you may, not all of them, but you may see something that has like a little iridescent, holographic, if you will, component to it, where depending on how you manipulate it, it catches the light in a different way. And that is the easiest to access, tangible example of what you're needing to be now. Now, I was like, I don't want to do this podcast because it's going to go over a lot of people's, not heads, but a lot of people's unawareness. And it's not that these people are lesser in their ability to comprehend and perform mental calculations or the like. It's not about who's smarter or dumber or any of that. It's about who is willing to just give themselves a little bit of the ability to unlock that area that says, what if? What if this could be? Now, the reason why I'm posing that question is because of the fact that, and I'm saying fact, that we have been getting a constant diet for the last 15 plus years of what is required to live in our world today. And it's been being spoon fed to us so that hopefully now we can have this quote unquote self unlocking to be able to update, upgrade, and understand that there are many things that we need to be considering in this awareness. Now, what am I talking about? When we're talking about the priming, if you will, of people being able to hold different consciousness in this, in the same context. And we talk about those holograms with all of that different information that can be pulled depending on the layer and the level of security. And we talk about understanding of how something can be different things. We start moving into this realm that I want to call, for lack of a better term, the trickster energy, the trickster realm. Now, stay with me, y'all, because I know you're like, oh my God, what is she talking about? What I'm talking about is that right now, we are being introduced full on, whether you're ready or not. We are required to have eyes wide open wisdom. And the eyes wide open wisdom means that we can no longer rely on our 3D understanding of our world. We must give proper credit and respect to those other elements that we've been being groomed on, whether it is with our intuition. So think of those movies, Limitless and Inception, and how they came out, and people were like, "Oh." Of getting people to dance with the idea that in your mind are multiple realities. And these realities can be manipulated, they can be shared, they can be invaded, they can become a reality that everyone accepts. And so I don't want to say Hollywood, entertainment got us to that point where we were willing to say, okay, all right, I see. So then after that, we've got that. So then the next part of this of dealing with getting you ready for being able to operate in different levels, different realities at the same time, they brought in the panness, the universalness. Now, I talked about the universalness of pan in the pandemonium the other day when we talked about the emotional pandemic, and we talked about how we are actually walking through, hopefully not becoming a occupant of pandemonium. Because pandemonium literally means the house of devils. And I was talking about how we are having to walk through hell. And in order to walk through hell, you must be willing to have your eyes wide open, and in that, the wisdom of the eyes wide open. And so when we're talking about these different elements that have been hopefully training us so that we can migrate through these times so that we can operate on a higher level, a higher frequency, there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is because there comes a point when in order to sustain life, you get to the point where it is imperative that you put more energy in just to sustain. And we had been doing that for a while. We had been putting a lot of energy just to sustain. But if you ever look at the concept of entropy, which is destruction, the more you put in energy just to maintain the status quo, the faster entropy can gain to erode that status quo faster than anything else. And so what we find ourselves with now is being in the trough that I've talked about so many times, with the idea of chaos and how chaos gets us to the point where we have to switch over from utter destruction or entropy into, we do the flip over into creation. Most folks don't want to realize that in the process of creating, it causes us to have to update and upgrade, because the mind that created the mess that got us into the destruction is not the mind that is going to get us out of it. So it becomes a flip over point where our intellect, our reasoning, our ability to live within a shared reality must update and upgrade. In comes the famous Nikola Tesla, who graced us, I believe, out of his time to give us a contemporary understanding of what would be required for us to live in a society where we could remove or put as much space between us and entropy as possible, which meant that we were going to have to upgrade our existence. And he gave us something really powerful while he was alive in this realm. And he said, if you would understand anything about our existence, you would understand these three things. And he said, energy, frequency, and vibration. He said, all things come down to that. And again, we are proven over and over again that he was right. And we're finding that right now, it is required that you must have that eyes wide open wisdom to be able to see and see some more and see some more, because everything has multiple meanings. Just because someone is talking to you, just because you're looking at something and it makes sense to you in that particular vein, you have to go back and look at it again and look for the codes. You then have to go back and look at it again and look at the energies. You then have to go back, look at it again, and look at the vibrations of who it is attracting, repelling, supporting, and demolishing. Because all of these things are happening. And I've only given you the tip of what is happening all around us. There are so many people that are I hate to say it, but they're getting left behind. And the sad part is they don't even know they're getting left behind, because they're only seeing things on one frequency, one reality, one vibration. And they're trying to figure out, well, why is it that I am continuing to do everything that I know to do? I'm sticking to the old rules and I'm not getting ahead. If that resonates with you at all, tip off is probably because you don't have eyes wide open wisdom. So let's get into it today. I want to talk to you about that. So thank you. I know my little introduction was a little bit longer than usual, but I thank you for sticking with me. So, in order to start getting this eyes wide open energy, I would like for you to understand that truly everything is really articulated through energy, frequency, and vibration. Now, stick with me. When you think about energy, I want you to think about it as electromagnetism. So you have electricity, which is going to be the positive, and magnetism, which is going to be the negative. And they are always coming together to interact and to create. That word, create, because they are in a dual situation, positive and negative. Opposites attract, electromagnetism. Okay. The very fact that you exist is because of an event that happened through electromagnetism when the egg and the sperm met and they were fertilized. I mean, the egg was fertilized by the sperm, and then the zygote happened and you became a being and you were birthed into this earth. So this is, I'm just telling you, this goes back down to the very seeds of our existence. Okay, so we got the electricity, electromagnetism. Then I want to talk about frequency and vibration. So, guess what? Frequency, the best way to even think about frequency is by thinking about light, vision, what you see. So, the awareness of what you observe, frequency, okay? Then, vibration. Think of vibration as that which you feel and hear. Mhm. So, light for frequency, vibration for sound. And so, you've got your positive and negative forces of energy. Then, you've got the light and observation of what you can see, observe, even and know. And then, you've got the vibration of what you can hear and feel. Are y'all starting to see how this encompasses all of your senses? And it causes you to unlock when you really start understanding how to get eyes wide open wisdom. It causes those senses to trigger other senses that you might not have known were in play to become part of your awareness. I did a podcast a long time ago where I talked about all these different senses that we already knew. That at this time we had like 32 that scientists and researchers agreed on. Like, we have senses that let us know how far our feet are from the ground when we take steps so that we don't stumble and fall all over. We have senses of perception, that depth perception, to let us know how to exactly put our hand out to grab an object without slamming into the object. Oh, there's so many senses. So this is not about some woo woo hoo hoo. This is really about our real time awareness. And now is the time where it is required, because only those who are able to activate and operate in these are going to have a fairly okay time of existing. So let's get back to how we've been being prepared for this for years now. And I only said 15 years because I really was only talking about some of the more contemporary uh, movies and television shows and the like. Okay. So we had, like I said, the Inception and Limitless. Limitless had to deal with this imaginary pill that you could take that could open your awareness, and that movie was helping us to understand that it is a symbol of what will happen when you open your awareness. You will be able to see more things, but it also had a warning that you have to build up to it. This is not something that you're gifted and you're immediately able to work with it. It has consequence. So the more you know, the more you don't know, which means you have to get stronger and stronger in your mental capacities to be able to handle this. Lo and behold, over the last same 15 years, we had an explosion of quantifiable and verifiable cases of true depression, anxiety, and panic. And when people were trying to figure it out, they were like, why are all these people depressed? Why are all these people having anxiety? And it came, we're still looking at it, but now we're starting to see that, oh my gosh, there are new levels of awareness, new levels of creativity, new levels, new frequencies, higher vibrations, higher energy that requires more. And so a lot of people are working with this without knowing that they're working with it. And thus, they're not able, at the time, they weren't able to cope because they were trying to use the rules of only what you saw through your five senses prior to this expansion pack that we had. Because in case you didn't know it by now, everybody got a mental expansion pack. I'm going to be talking about that. And I guess I'm going to probably do it in a different podcast because it deserves its own time. But I wanted you to understand that this is afoot. Okay. So we've got the awareness coming. So then, lo and behold, now I am not saying that Marvel did this consciously, but I wouldn't put it past them. So then they come with the next thing that we were going to need. So once you start getting the awakening, once you start getting on this higher frequency and all of these things, then they started introducing the concept of the superhero. Now, the superhero is not that everybody is going to have superpowers. No, it is the fact that if you look at the very definition of superhuman, it means that it is a different type of human. I've talked about that on a different podcast, the difference between preternatural and supernatural. Preternatural is something that is a cast off of nature, of what already exists. It is birth from nature, but it is not a part of nature. Whereas superhuman supersedes human, meaning that they are an upgrade. So you've got this concept of these superhumans that are coming to quote unquote save the world. Now, you guys know by now that I write novels, I teach how to write them, and I love my craft. I try to do my best with what I got at the time. And archetypes are a huge thing for those who make a career out of writing. We have to, I believe, know the different archetypes. And in the Marvel comic, not Marvel comics, but the Marvel movie series, not only do you see the importance of quote unquote having superhumans, you also get the concept of the trickster energy. And that is playing huge right now. The trickster energy is, and if you're familiar with it from just even the Marvel comics, we know that Loki was the trickster. And there were a few more in there, but for the main part, Loki carried the load of trickster energy. And let me just give you something. Now I got this from shamansway.net. When you look at it, go through and look at the tricksters. And I got this one from them because I had a rambling kind of definition, but they did it succinctly. And this is what they say that I already agreed with, but I'm going to read to you the role of the trickster. Okay. So the role of the trickster is to question and to cause us to question and to not accept things blindly. And they use the term he appears when a way of thinking becomes outmoded, thereby needing to be torn down, built anew. He is the destroyer of worlds and at the same time, the savior of us all. So if you're looking at the different tricksters, and I am not going to assume you're familiar with them, but there are many different tricksters, and a lot of them that we are aware of, or globally aware of, I should say, uh, reside in the realm of God and goddess level. So you've got the greatest one that I've just talked about, Pan. The goat god Pan, meaning universal, always trickery and playfulness and those types of things. He brought about illumination. He would play his flute to trick you and to seduce you and these types of things. But then the other ones, as I said before, Loki. Now Loki came from Norse mythology, if you're familiar with that. But then in the African mythology, there is Ananasi, where you could see him displayed prominently on the Showtime series, excuse me, American Gods. Then you also have Kitsune. Kitsune is a Japanese one. She, female, is a fox shifter. And you'll notice that a lot of this trickster energy shifts. They are usually shapeshifters. You have Ishu, which is from the Nigerian mythology. You have Krishna from the Indian mythology. You have Hermes from Greek mythology, which we also know as Tahuti. We know him as excuse me, Hermes. As I said before, we know him as Mercury, and we also know him as Thoth, where we get the word thought from. It is said that Hermes was the great Atlantean. He is the father of lying. He is the patron of thieves, and he is the bringer of new consciousness. And so, of course, you've also got some animal tricksters. You got your coyotes from Native American mythology. You got your rabbits. That's why a lot of times when you talk about a Briar Rabbit for African American, excuse me, or even in Alice in Wonderland with the rabbit. And then you've got the fox, like I said before, with kitsune and clever like a fox. And then you also have the raven. So there are many of these trickster energies, but they are there to help us expand our consciousness so that we can move past outmoded thinking. Because to stay in outmoded thinking means you become part of that which is to be destroyed. And all of this is part of the agents of chaos, the bringers of destruction. Most people fear them and veer them as the enemy. But when you're in the midst of it and you start to see the change and you start to see the fires, and I've talked about the weed killers, I've talked about chaos, all of this is the same and it's part of it. And I am just being blessed by wisdom. I've determined, I'm like, wisdom, you give me what to say, and that's what I'm going to say. And if I'm not feeling it that day, I'm not feeling it, because this is an important, pivotal time in our lives. And we must go into it with eyes wide open in that wisdom. And so, the eyes wide open wisdom part of it is that you do not simply observe and take in and feel and notice. Instead, you take that and you immediately turn it into experience so that your environment recognizes that you are part of the future. You see, there's a quote I heard the other day, and it was talking about uh, the lives of those who have been cut down recently. And this person says something very poignant. And what she said was, is she said, um, for someone to break into your home and kill you while you sleep in your bed without fearing consequence is to say that that person does not view you as part of their future. And I remembered it because it was visceral, and then it moved in me, like I talked about when we talk about the three stages of consideration for building a product from Don Norman, where he talks about visceral, then behavioral, then reflective. It moved through me. It hit me like a with the visceral. Then I started having feelings about it, in my feelings. And then I started reflecting on it. And this is what has come about out of that reflection. And that is that in order for us to thrive and grow and to gain eyes wide open wisdom, we must absolutely mandatorily must be able to not only see, but operate and respond appropriately to all of the different layers, levels, frequencies, dimensions that are afoot. So, in my last few moments, I want to talk about a few little things because I'm actually been looking at something that is coming up. In the next few months, it was a Netflix show called The Umbrella Academy, and when I finally watched it, it worked through me because I looked at how it was set up, and I just appreciate authors who are willing to go there and who, whether they know it or not, are almost prophetic in how they write. And the premise of this Umbrella Academy, based on what I saw from Netflix, is that there is a world event where babies are spontaneously generated and born, meaning that women who were not pregnant become pregnant in the matter of hours. They are going into labor and they give birth to these babies. And a lot of these not a lot of them, but some of these babies have superpowers. Here we go again with the superhuman. So there is a code in that, you guys. Then the next thing is this billionaire eccentric goes around the world and offers exorbitant amounts of monies to procure these children. And the funny thing about this is he finds seven. So he finds seven of them. If we look at the seven, if you will, the seven energy, most people think of it as a divine number, but it is also, are you ready for this? It is also a number imbued by the trickster energy because it is the number of spiritual test, meaning that you get a reward if you are worthy. So you will be put through many, many, many tests. Now, the short of this is that eyes wide open wisdom when I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay, this is another one of those preparing us kind of media to get us ready for what's required, what we need to be doing. The seventh person, and I don't want to give a spoiler here, but the seventh one of these children, they grow up thinking they don't have power, and they live the most normal life out of all of them. At the end of the first season, it is revealed that not only did they have power, but they had a lot of power. And when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what's happening right now. So at this current stage, especially in the apex of it, ground zero of it in America, we are currently having a number 7 event where that sibling that you left uh in the basement because her power was too powerful, you didn't understand it and you thought it was destructive, and you secured her down and locked her in the basement. Then you tried to tell her she had no power, and when you thought that you had her subdued with the social lullabies of placating and being quietly not seen so that her other siblings who quote unquote have power could shine, what ends up happening is eventually Vanya wakes up. And so with this trickster energy, this destructive gods of destruction, agents of chaos happening right now, basically, number 7 has woken, and the world will never be the same. And only those who have eyes to see, ears to hear, and the wisdom to experience and react and show that you get it and you're willing to change will survive. So, my time is up. I thank you for yours. This has been MichelleSpiva, your practical priestess of wisdom, with today's podcast of Wisdom Smack. Mwah. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. And thank you for those who are continuing to reach out and giving me feedback. I am thoroughly enjoying it, and it is what is keeping me going to continue to do these. So thank you so much. And check out the other ones, and I'll see you soon. Bye. And that's going to do it for today's podcast of Wisdom Smack with MichelleSpiva. If you like this podcast, please help us get the word out. Like, comment, subscribe, and even share. And if you really like it, please help us continue to get the word out by considering using this show's link for Amazon. So when you want to go to Amazon and you do all of your general shopping, please use MichelleSpiva.com/AMZ. It's simple as that. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and this show might receive a little bit of commission that will go towards helping to further get these episodes out to you and to others. So thank you so much for listening. This has been MichelleSpiva with Wisdom Smack. Bye.